Okay, Fred, tell me as much as you can from the beginning of what you know about Midway, when it was founded, all this.
You're talking about the airport itself?
Right.
Well, as far as I can tell from the guys that preceded me was the airport probably started here in the middle 20s. 24, 25, somewhere in there. Cinder runways, the whole works. But actually, it did not get dedicated until 1927.
So it was probably maybe started in the early 20s, you think?
The middle 20s, I would say. They had onion farms out here, everything else. There's a railroad running through the middle down 59th Street.
And none of these houses were around here?
This hangar we're sitting in right now was the first permanent hangar put up on this airport.
The Army hangar?
The Army hangar. The Army put it up, I understand, in 1926.
Did they use it for did like the Postal Service use this?
Anybody that was connected with the Army used it. The Postal Service was up in Maywood on First Avenue. They had an airport on each side of the railroad. That's where Lindbergh used to go in. And one of our employees, Steve Margalis, used to load his airplane up.
Every day?
Every day, as long as the weather was all right.
Well, that was back in the
That was back in the middle 20s.
And the kind of airplanes they flew Stinsons?
No, they flew the old biplanes. And the reason for that being was that was all that was available. And cabin planes were probably just coming on the scene then. But that's all that was available.
When did Scotty O'Carroll come out here?
Okay, Scotty O'Carroll started at Ashburn Airport. And how he started there is he came over from Ireland. I think he told me he had around $3.40 in his pocket. And ran it there. And he got a job driving a bus for Chicago Motor Coach down on Michigan Avenue. And of course, he was his own man, and he was always being reprimanded for not wearing his cap while he's driving the bus. And one day they pulled him over and told him either put the cap on or get off the bus, and he got off the bus. And of course he got interested in flying. In fact, one of his first airplanes he bought was a Jetty, which was a trainer in World War I. In fact, he was telling me about one of his first charter trips with the airplane that they got established on this airport, which was called Municipal Airport then, Chicago Municipal. That they started the airplane and decided they both better go to the washroom behind the hangar before they went on the trip. And as they're both standing up against the wall doing their thing, they saw some flames flickering in the window panes. And lo and behold, the airplane that was sitting there idling waiting to go on a trip with the two of them burnt to the ground.
What was wrong with it?
Well, probably a broken fuel line, something like that. Which was not uncommon in those days. You know, they were old copper lines.
Sure.
And unless they were properly annealed and had the right curvature to them, they just vibrated and busted.
Who taught him to fly, you know?
No, I don't remember who taught him to fly. But some of the fellas that learned after him, like Willie Howell, I think it was about 1933 when he learned how to fly. But Scotty had a real low number. He had 4 numbers. In fact, remind me to give you his approach plate book down
Oh, sure.
He had 4 very, very low numbers because the licenses weren't issued until about 1926, when the Department of Commerce came in and wanted to start regulating the flying business. But then he lost his license. It was in the 1940s when I started to work for Monarch myself. And, he was on a charter, I think down in Galesburg or Danville, Illinois. And of course, any landing airplane has a right of way. In those days, anyway, everything was controlled visually, or by a light signal from the tower. But he took off in front of a light airplane and had a Tribune reporter in it. He took off right in front of the guy, and the guy flipped over on his back when he landed. And the guy got injured pretty seriously, and consequently, Scotty lost his original license and, of course, was suspended for a period of time.
What was his excuse for that?
Well, in the charter business, that's what they pay you for, is to get things done in a hurry. And it's still the same today. It hasn't changed.
Let me ask you. So Monarch wasn't called Monarch when it first came out here, was it?
No, it was. He started as Pierce O'Carroll Flying School or Service, and then when he moved over from Ashburn, he took over the hangar there. The address was 6054 South Cicero. It was a different name then. I can't recall right now. But another operator was in there and went belly up, and he took it over in probably late 27. But then around 1933 or so, there was a fellow that came out to the airport that was known in the area. His dad had money. His name was Al Schlossberg, and he wanted to form a partnership with Scotty. And his dad owned a raincoat manufacturing place here in Chicago, and it was called a Monarch King or something like that. And that's how the name Monarch came about.
But the partner didn't stick around, did he?
Well, Roosevelt had taken the airmail contracts away from the Army Air Corps because of the number of fatal wrecks that was going on, and wanted to turn it over to the airline or private industry. And either Scotty or Al Schlossberg was against it, and then they broke up. And after the breakup, Al Schlossberg had hired a pilot to pose as a student, learned to fly at Monarch, and took Scotty up and intentionally crashed the airplane with the both of them ended. Scotty lost all his teeth.
Where did he crash it? Around here?
I don't recall. You know, as you're flying along, and because I used to fly many hours go by him and Tony Makowitz both, and it's just like having a conversation like you and I are having right now. You know, some points you remember, and other points you just don't remember.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Tell me about those barnstorming days. I mean, before the FAA basically around this airport, I mean, you had a railroad track running through the airport. You couldn't have that nowadays.
No, the runways would be way too short for any kind of operation.
I mean, what went on with the pilots? I mean, they must have been a tight group.
Well, in those days, we didn't have high buildings or TV antennas or anything to worry about. And if we had trips that forced us to fly low, we went right off the ground, even though we were supposed to be a minimum of 500 feet. But we couldn't make any time. if we went any higher than what we did right off the ground. Of course, you had a lot of farmers mad at you because their chickens were going in all different directions.
I guess that's why they call it barnstorming.
Well, not really. I think the barnstorming came probably after World War I, when it was kind of free for all. Everybody wanted to keep flying, and they wanted to make a buck and fly farmers from their barnyards, more or less.
Sure.
You know, on a Sunday afternoon.
It wasn't very safe back then, was it?
Well, it's the problem of buying an airplane, trying to pay for it and fly it and maintain it and make money with it at the same time. Gets a little rough.
Now you came to Monarch and tell us how you did that.
Well, how I got involved was May of 1944. I happened to be at a carnival across from the airport, right at 63rd and Cicero, behind the Acme Grill. And as we were up at the top of the Ferris wheel and stopped waiting for them to load more passengers, we noticed these light airplanes landing here. And after we got off the ride, we walked across the street and there was a sign advertising sightseeing planes. So we went over and bought a couple of tickets, but we had to wait the next day for at least one or two more passengers to show up because Scotty wouldn't take us up for $7. The tickets were $3.50 each. So we came back the next day, and as I sat next to him up in the cockpit of this Stinson SR9, he asked me what I was doing, and I told him, well, I was in school, but wasn't too satisfied with going to school, the war on and everything. And he asked me if I'd like to go to work for him. I said, sure. So, in fact, I came out the next day with a fellow I used to work part-time with. His name was Jack Gordon. And I told him I'm pretty sure I'm hired at Monarch. And Jack said, well, he's going next door to see what United is doing, and which was a hangar right next door to ours, on Cicero Avenue, and we both got hired. Jack later became pretty high up as chief of maintenance of some of the cities here in the United States, but I understand that he had a personal problem later on in life and decided to retire.
Now, was this before Monarch Airlines?
Okay, approximately a year later, but at the same time I started with Monarch, I enlisted in the Merchant Marine. I tried to enlist in the Marines and the Navy, but I had a perforated eardrum. And I was rejected for that. And my pay at Monarch at that time was $15 a week. $10 was for flying lessons. And I learned to fly at this airport here in an SR9, but then the city rule, which is still in effect today, didn't allow any student activity. So I had to go to Harlem Airport and solo in a J3 Cup, which was September 1944. And my job here was just almost like it is today. You're doing a number of different jobs every day. When I started with Monarch, it was scrubbing the washrooms, cleaning the oil off the belly of the airplanes, which were all fabric at the time. You got to be careful with the oil that soak in there. Helping to rebuild the engines, flying co-pilot, selling sightseeing rides, sweeping a hangar floor, over at Scotty's house mowing the lawn, taking the leaves out of the gutter, or washing the window. There's 100 different things when you're involved in this type of business.
And how old was Monarch Airlines at the time that you?
Well, it was Monarch Air Service at the time. We didn't form the airlines till I got out of the service, I believe it was in 47 or so. And we purchased a P-38 that we never did get to fly right. We sold to the United Airline captain. We had a couple of war surplus trainers, and then we purchased a DC-3, which is similar to a C-47 from American Airlines.
How much would that go? How much did you pay for it?
I don't recall that. I believe the number of the airplane was 17338. And then, of course, we acquired two more C-47s and three C-46s. And we had an airline, I believe we had it registered in Nevada and Delaware Corporation because of the taxes here in the state. And I think we called it 36 Mike Corporation, which was a tail number off of one of the C-46s. So, and it was going pretty good, except you ran into a lot of problems trying to fill the airplanes up. We were going to Miami, Seattle, New York, Los Angeles. We also had a contract with the Department of Immigration to fly the illegal aliens back to San Antonio all the time.
Wait, how long would it take to go to Los Angeles in a DC-3?
Oh, right. It would take a good going there. Of course, you got the wind against you going westbound. I would say a good 8 hours, or a little bit better.
Non-stop?
Well, I don't think we only held about 808 gallons in a C-47.
Now, your competitor at the time was what?
Well, our competitor in 1947 was Paul Butler. And we had sold him a hangar. That's how Butler got started on this airport. He came in with a twin-engine Beech, it's a D-18 model number. He had a flat tire, tailwheel tire. Nobody could take care of him right away, so he talked to Scotty about acquiring a hangar here. And Scotty had just acquired a hangar from American, and then American backed out of the deal because they didn't want us putting any airplanes in the hangar until their lease was up at the city, even though they had vacated the hangar. And unbeknown to Paul Butler, he didn't know that American had reneged on the deal, and Scotty sold Paul Butler the hangar for a finder's fee of $25,000.
He didn't own the hangar. He didn't
No,
own it.
you can't own anything on this airport. Everything belongs to the city. And at the time, it was also owned by the Board of Education,
Sure.
leased to the city of Chicago. But I guess you can call it a finder's fee. And that is where Butler Aviation started, is right on this airport.
Let me ask you, when I met before with your competitor, was that United Airlines and American?
Well, they were all our competitors.
They were small at the time, right?
Well, they all had their routes governed, where they can go and more or less how much they could charge. And we were the new guy on the block. And we couldn't leave at a specific time because then we would be classified as schedule carrier, and we weren't. But we didn't have the expenses the airlines had, so we could charge a much lower fare $24 in New York.
God.
And of course, when you're flying that kind of equipment and trying to keep up with the big guy, it's tough to maintain the airplanes properly and everything else. And it's almost what's going on today since deregulation. It's go, 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 and beat the next guy out and beat his price. And somewhere along the line,
Something slips.
the work is not being done the way it should be. And the non-skids start having a terrible record.
Non-schedules?
Yes. I mean, practically every week you're picking up the paper, one of them is crashing. And the majority was contributed to just crew training and tired iron, trying to keep it going, and make a dollar at the same time.
Sure. It's kind of a dog-eat-dog business, right?
Right. Yeah.
Let me ask you, Monarch had a few crashes now along the line, didn't they?
Well, that's when we got out of the airline business. I believe it was January of 1950 or 1951.
Got out because it was getting too...
Well, it was one of our C-46s. We had a former Royal Canadian Air Force pilot, who was our chief pilot also, attempting to take off with a load of ice on the airplane. In fact, the refuelers had to use ropes to stay on the wings while they refueled it. They couldn't even stand.
God.
It was bitter cold January, and as he was taking off on 31 left shortly after midnight. And even though the co-pilot had warned him that it's unwise to take this airplane the way it was, this guy being the chief pilot, he had to show everybody else how to do it. And he never really got off the ground. Right near the firehouse, we had a bunch of war surplus BT-13s parked. He ripped off stabilizer off the C-46, and then the airplane bounced up in the air, going straight west, and which was his heading. Even though he was taking off to the northwest, he lost control of it with the ice. And he'd hit these airplanes and then bounced up in the air. And heading straight west, he went on the other side of the railroad tracks and crashed. He hit a haystack and a barn there because there was still some farms around.
And how many passengers did he have?
There was 58 passengers, most of them military personnel. And everybody got off the airplane alive, but then it exploded. And all that was left was the tail section, and the engines, and some of the wing.
It's been a hell of a ride.
Well, one guy commented, I understand, after he got off the airplane, it was the smoothest landing he ever had. He thought he was in New York. That's where the airplane was headed. But then we had salvaged quite a bit of the luggage off the airplane, and we kept it in the hangar till all the lawsuits were being settled. And the bags were all sealed by the insurance companies. And of course, when the passengers were all asked what the contents of their luggage was, everybody had silk stockings and silk underwear and valuable watches and currency. And of course, in court, when they presented these claims, and their bag was open then, the sealed bag was open, there was a lot of red faces. But the stuff that couldn't be salvaged, there was a lot of handguns. Apparently some of the guys carried them for what reason I don't know. And a lot of currency burnt up just corners of 10s and 20s. Lots of clothes.
Now, this was hopefully the only crash.
Of the airline. We had numerous little airplane crashes.
Like what?
Well, in fact, the Navions, we had 2 Navions that Scotty had bought right after the war was over. He picked them up in San Diego. Ryan Aircraft was making them. And they had a fuel selector on there that went from main tank to auxiliary tank. And as he was used up his auxiliary tank fuel and was going back to the main, the handle broke off in his hand, still on the auxiliary side. He ran out of fuel and had to put it down in the desert there somewhere. And of course, over a period of years, even preceding that, I had to sleep in one of the SR-9 Stinsons down Soldiers Field.
Why was that?
Well, there was a rocker arm support broke on Tony, and he lost altitude very rapidly, so he landed in the south parking lot of Soldiers Field. Of course, to prevent anybody from stealing parts off it, I slept in it all night. The next day, Tony and I changed the cylinder that was busted, and Scotty took it off and brought it back to the airport here. It's a funny thing that the people that were on the ride came back and wanted half their money back because they didn't get the full ride out of it.
Wait, no. Did he have too much room to spare when he took off again?
I had plenty of room. The airplane got off very good. Very good.
As I recall, someone else later on landed in Soldiers Field, but were afraid to take off, so they called Scotty.
That happened before this accident. That's probably before I started with Monarch. Then we had another one in here also, right after I started. Well, no, let's see. The Army had borrowed an airplane office, number 52. It was also an SR-9, a red one. That we had to go down to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and pick up. And I drove your grandmother and your sister back with me. And it's 41 Buick.
Give me my mom.
Your mom, right? Yeah, your mom.
It's been a while.
Right, and oh, I know what I was thinking of. Patsy Spangler was with us that day. Also, that's what I was thinking about. But anyway, on the way back with the airplane, unbeknown to Scotty, the thing had a fuel tank leak, and he ran out of fuel just as he landed in Cincinnati. Ran out of fuel right on the runway. And of course, prior to that, number 89, which was an aristocratic lady, it was a blue and white airplane with a picture of a naked woman on it. It was over the White River in Missouri, New York. Scotty had fallen asleep along with his co-pilot at the time, which was a young fellow. And when the engine quit, which wakes you up in a hurry, we used to have flares in those days you could pull. We had 1 minute, usually 3 1-minute flares and 1 3-minute flare.
What would these things do?
Well, they would light up the ground,
right,
so we could see where we're going to go. Use
right,
at night. Well, he pulled the flares, and there was only 2 places to go: in the forest or in the river. So he put it down in the river, and just as they're settling down in the river, the 2 of them jump out of the cabin door, and at the same time, Scotty was taking his pants off, which had, I understand, between $500 and $700 in his pocket for the trip, because you got paid cash in those those days for everything. No such thing as credit cards or personal checks. And Scotty started swimming through the river like an old hog there, and his co-pilot yelled, "Stand up," and the water was only up to his neck. And of course the pants floated down the river and never recovered them, money and all. But they later salvaged the airplane.
How come he had such good luck in those days? I mean, he was in quite a few crashes, but he always walked away.
They say the luck of the Irish. Maybe there's something to it. I don't know. But anyway, we had another one there that I helped rebuild. That was number 10, which was also an SR-9. And pilot made a mistake. Couldn't be charged to him, but we had the Smith prop controls in those days, they call them. And they looked similar to a throttle control. Well, we didn't have a throttle control or a Smith control cable to put in, so we put another throttle control in. And instead of pulling back the prop pitch on takeoff, the pilot pulled the throttle back, and it went through the fence at the terminal and bounced off a couple of cars, and then the wing hit the flagpole there and bent it up. But we rebuilt it and sold it to a fellow in Kankakee.
And what was Scotty's attitude about all these crashes? Just say like
Well, usually his bark was a lot greater than his bite. He was a wonderful man, as long as you did your job and didn't cheat him.
And then he was...
Well, he seemed to be more concerned over a dime than a couple $1,000 if something did go wrong. Because he used to have fellas that selling rides for him that would wind their way down to 63rd and Cicero and sell all the tickets, and then that was the last we saw of him, money and all.
Well, in those days...
But then we had a stagger wing beach we used to fly. We used to have trouble with the chain busting on the left landing gear. It was a retractable gear airplane. And I was to go along, and I think we had Ingrid Bergman for a passenger that day. And I was to go along because we had a kind of a goofy fuel selector switch on this airplane. It was almost like a combination lock. You had a feel for the tank. We had 5 tanks on it, 4 wing tanks and a belly tank. And it just, you had to have a certain feel for it. But American airline pilot that had taught me how to fly, Tom Reams, was taken off. There wasn't room for me because Ingrid Bergman had an extra passenger with her. But as Tom was taking off, the wind got a hold of him, and they smashed up the lower left wing. They had to come back and get into a SR-9. That same stagger wing beach on windy days, 2 of us would have to ride on the wingtips to keep it from tipping over. We would have a signal arrangement made out so that when Scotty had control of the airplane, we would fall off the wings then onto the runway, and then we walk back to the hangar. One day, I think he forgot about us because I know the airplane was going pretty good, and there was no signal, and I hopped off, signal or no signal. I really got my knees and elbows all scabbed up.
God, it was...
And it was the same when he landed during real windy weather. We had to drive out to the middle of the runway and wait for him to land and then hop on the wing and hold the airplane down until we got back in the hangar again.
Well, I'll tell you, the business has really changed. Let me ask you something. A lot of big people in aviation started out at Midway Airport.
Yeah, Scotty gave Bob Prescott, who formed Flying Tiger Line, gave him credit till it got established. Yeah, Bob had a Conestoga and a C-47, but he had no money to pay for this. In fact, there was a desk around one of these hangars someplace that Bob used to sleep on between trips because he didn't even have motel money. And then, of course, when the airline got established and everything, and our primary moneymaker at the time was fuel sales. And of course, as I always said, the blue suiters moved in on Bob and just gave him a title, and they took over, and they never remembered Monarch. They went and got their own fuel and or got it off somebody else.